Do you feel that as we look at youth development, because that's one of the major hot topics here now, the youth development or some sort of centralized youth program, should it be mandatory should philanthropy or giving back or community service be mandatory and in an excessive amount? Sure.
I've been toying with this idea for a while because some research shows that if you push kids to volunteer and they don't want to be there, they can sometimes be more of a hindrance than a help. But on the flip side, if they don't really get an opportunity to experience certain philanthropic acts, then they might not ever know what it feels like to give back. So I think having even like a 5-hour minimum or just something where the school or the community program would say
just 5 hours,
at least to get your feet wet, like per year type of thing.
Okay.
Instead of, I know some places it's 10 hours per year or more, but just something, at least if the school is like taking a field trip somewhere to do a beach cleanup and everybody gets to experience that.
Nice.
Or they're go to walk the dogs at the Humane Society or something like that. Those are helpful things.
Let me don't flinch up my face at that, because I think that's important. Mm-hmm. I like the beach cleanup aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, honestly, if it wasn't mandatory, I might never have done service and I might never be involved in what I do now.
It was mandatory for you?
Yeah. Well, for high school. For high school, for example, you had to do 40 hours at my high school.
Okay.
So 10 hours, or it could be all done in 1 year.
Yeah. It's just 40 hours to graduate over 4 years. Okay. Like, come on, 10 hours. And you could really document anything. But, my mother was a big proponent and my father was a pastor. My mother was a nurse. So 2 professions were kind of service as part of it. Mm-hmm. So I think, but growing up, you always want to be a little counterculture as a priest kid. And, I didn't necessarily, want to always, my mother would love to go take us to the community garden. She says, you're coming with me. You're going to help out. It's a local soup kitchen. They have a garden. We're going to help clean it. I'm like, Mom, it's on a Saturday morning. Like everyone else is going to the beach. Everyone else is doing this. Why do I have to do this at 7 a.m.? And to be honest, I really enjoyed it as a kid. And I met the staff that worked there, some of the other volunteers. And I started realizing like there's this sense of like community as well. And so I think a lot of volunteers and volunteers that I've recruited to help with projects, sometimes they find themselves or they find kind of belonging even. Mm-hmm. So there's even I always say like there's actually benefits obviously for the charity, but there's a lot of benefits for a person to be a volunteer. Right, to not be being paid for something, to be giving back. And for me, like it eventually moved me even towards the career path I went on to get more involved in fundraising and working with nonprofits. But I would never have done that had there hadn't been a nudge from my high school and my mother. But yeah, I do think there's a degree, but I don't think it should be, overly forced or some ridiculous number.
Right.
I think but I do think kids need a taste of it. Yeah. And especially it depends on the community you're from. It depends on your family. Like my family was a big reason I think I turned out the way I did.
Okay.
But for some folks, for some kids that aren't surrounded by that kind of a family that sees service as a pivotal part of what makes a person a person, mm-hmm. I think having a little bit of a requirement can be helpful. But the jury's still out.